Well, hey YouTube, Petey Twofinger here. I'm going to do a quick demo of the BP9000. This is a bass preamp that I made. My wife and I made over the lockdown. So it's got an auto wah with a bypass switch, a compressor, which is a Demeter compulator, so it's compression, volume. There's a mix knob for the distortion, and treble and bass and master volume. So what I can do here is we're going to set it up clean first. Here's the bass has a tone knob that I almost always roll that all the way back on this bass. That's the EQ. So here's the bass knob on the EQ. And then treble. So for the distortion, it's nice to just blend a little bit of that in. And then you can also mess with the treble to accentuate that a little bit more. There's a clipper switch which changes the clipping diodes, and it's actually LEDs. So you can open it up more. It's a little less compressed and more open sounding. As far as like getting tones on this thing and playing around with it, we just finished it tonight, so I really don't know what I'm doing on it per se. The compressor, like here, let me. I have the compressor maxed, and you can hear it. I mean, maybe not on the. Turn some of that treble down. Yeah, as I release that compressor, you can hear the gain coming up on the .250. As we release the compressor, turn the amount down, it actually gets a little bit more decibels. And last but not least, we have the auto wah. think one of the neat things with this, depending on how you set it up, is going to be using the auto wah in a more subtle capacity. Meaning, and same thing with the overdrive, like setting the distortion on the clipping mode that's more open, and setting a moderate amount of gain, and just bleeding a little bit of that rough edge in there with the clean. The EQ it's called a Baxendall EQ, and it was a circuit. Frederick Legion of Parasite Studios is the guy that hosted that Vero. I think I got it off of his. It's called Parasite Studios. I think he's a Swedish guy. But anyway, we tried a few different things in here. None of them, I wasn't happy with any of them. I had a NE1, initially the NE1, off of Paul in the lab, and I think either there was an error on that, or maybe it was I didn't have the quite right capacitor. But it just didn't do much. The controls on it didn't do much. This EQ, it's a volume, bass, and treble, the Baxendall. So it's custom tailored for bass. There's a capacitor mod that you do on it. So that's a highly recommended circuit. The DOD 250 is just great. But working on it for bass, I found having the blend control rather than just a bypass was paramount. We tried the JFET buff and blend. I was not happy with the performance of that, and that was the straight signal is a lower level than the overdriven signal is a lot louder, just decibels. So mixing those together, you need kind of a more hefty mixer circuit, and that was the B blend. Okay. The B blend is a Vero. Sean, I forget the guy's last name. Sean, all credit due to Sean for his wonderful layout. The B blender, that's the way to go if you're going to be trying to blend stuff or blend a clean with distorted on a bass. I would recommend, maybe you can get by, maybe the JFET split and blend will work for you. It's a simpler circuit. It uses a pair of JFET transistors as opposed to a TLO74. So for me, the idea of using an op amp as opposed to a JFET is, yeah, buddy, I would much rather use an op amp than a JFET. So I've had terrible luck with JFETs, with bad pinouts, bad JFETs, just a nightmare. Continuing on, we tried a Flatline compressor, which was okay. It compresses a little bit, not nearly enough for this bass, which has like super resonant peaks, super low, loud notes versus real quiet strings. So the Demeter Compulator is a compressor that people love for bass. I know we auditioned the Flatline and the Demeter completely smoked it. And when we initially built it, we used TLO72 op amp chip. It calls for this older, kind of a dirty, crappy op amp, which we special ordered and used those because I'm from the school of where people will say, oh, that's an old op amp, use the new, cleaner hi-fi one. No, that's not my school. My school is that kind of dirty chip distortion, just that little bit of grit that you're going to get is the magical ingredient in a great bass tone or guitar tone for rock and roll. So that was worth it to me to spend the $5 and know in my head that I've got those chips in there. I know it's stupid. Does it make a difference to the ear? I'm guessing it does a little bit. I didn't A/B them. I didn't do a contest on it. But the secret in this device is the Demeter Compulator, the B blender, and the Baxendall EQ. That's the secret, because we tried the Flatline, didn't like it. We tried two different, the other one was a Spitfire preamp Fender Spitfire, I think it was called, the layout. Fender Stingray preamp, which was another one that I wasn't happy with. It seemed like nothing was going on in the bass control. The treble worked, so I don't know if that was user error or what. But as far as if you were thinking about putting together a all-in-one bass preamp, I'm sure you could do better, and I'm sure you could do worse. This was a really fun project. It's powered by a 3-pack of 18650 lithium-ion batteries. So it's wired, the ground wire goes through the switch. So in case this, if it won't turn on, like we turn it on, it won't turn on unless the cable's plugged in. So I'm not sure on the battery life. We'll see how long those 18650s last. The downside of this design is that you do need to take these 3 screws out and pop the lid off to get to the batteries. But it's not that big of a deal. So that's the BP9000. It was an old cable TV box or something like that. Somebody gifted me this. We're going to try using this and see how it works on our powered mixer that we play through. It's a homemade PA with a GK Neo 210 bass cabinets, 210s, and then we got a couple of 8-inch PA speakers. And we make rock and roll through that PA. We don't play through amps, we just play through the PA. So we've been using a Zoom B1, B2, what have you. We're going to see if we can maybe eliminate that. We typically run 3 sounds. We'll have a clean bass sound. We'll have a little distorted bass sound, and then we'll have one that has the auto wah on it. So we got to see how this all comes together. But if I was going to recommend somebody build a bass preamp, I would say build this. This is it. There's a JFET buffer on the front end. I forgot to really acknowledge that very much. Put a JFET buffer with a Electro-Harmonix bass balls, not that difficult, 1 knob. You can do it with 1 knob with a bypass switch. 2 knob compressor, 1 knob mixer for the 2 knob distortion, and you don't really need that switch, although it's nice to have another clipping option. And then just a volume, bass, and treble control, and there you go. So the idea with this is we have a lot of little amplifier units here, Class D amp boards, and then speaker cabinets. So we could combine this with any, like this here is a Shure TPA 3116 100 watt. That's what it's rated, and it takes a 10 to 24 volt DC power plug. So you can plug whatever. You could plug a 9 volt battery in here, but basically we could combine this preamp. You would plug the guitar in here, and then the preamp would come out, plug into the power amp dealio, and then a speaker cable coming out to the cabinet, and that's it. That's your bass rig. And she would still be able to get those different tones. Now there's no foot switching. You got to come over and manually operate the get your tones, which to me that isn't. That whole thing about having to have foot switches, it's overrated. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. You can look forward to more demos of this in our music, because this is what she's going to be using, so you'll hear it as we go. It was a super fun project. I really want to thank my wife. And anybody who commented positively on this, thank you so much. We really do appreciate you guys commenting. So we'll see you around, and peace.